Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
Well, that's weird. I was with your mother last night. She didn't say nothing about that. Like,
Yeah.
it was too good.
Welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Jacob Vigil. Jacob, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Jacob Vigil. I am
Oh, Vigil.
Vigil. It's hard.
Oh,
Trust me, nobody gets my name right. I am a SAG voice actor over here in LA. I've done projects for Netflix, Disney Plus, done some animated films, and here to talk to my man about some comedy in a elevator. I don't know what floor we're on, but we'll figure it out.
that's right. We're moving around. I don't know if we're on Earth still. So well, let's get started, shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. And would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
I feel like, yeah, the comic is where you start off, and then the comedian is where you kind of build your own repertoire, your own like kind of vibe with the audience. People know who you are, what you stand for, and that kind of builds it to the comedian aspect of your career.
All right. Well, that brings to the first question, which is about the role of persona in comedy. So, how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
I would say that it starts off as a character. I mean, most people like I feel like there's some comedians out there that do use, the voice like Larry the Cable Guy doesn't sound like Larry the Cable Guy in real life. They get that like, you don't hear that in real life, but it was something to connect with the audience to give that character. But I also do think that authenticity with a person is, it's natural, it's needed, and people get a little more connection to it.
So that does lead to the second question, which is about authenticity, if it matters, or is the illusion part of the magic? But let me throw the third part is because you brought up Larry the Cable Guys. The idea is there a third? There's a comic, comedian, and the magician. So is illusion part of the magic?
I would say that, yeah, like, like when it comes down to comics, like, if you break that character, it kind of breaks the illusion of what you're performing. Like if you're doing like, say if the Muppets, just came out and just, had the puppeteer while they were doing this, it would break the
Mhm.
illusion. Same thing with comedians. I feel like if you have that, you're committing to the bit. If you don't commit to the bit, then no one's gonna follow you along with the journey.
So the puppet, would you say that that's, I mean, if we're kind of put it in some kind of comedy context, would that be more of a magician or comic or comedian?
I would say I would probably say a little bit of both of the comic and the magician. Because like you're giving off this you're funny, doing like, trying to do funny jokes. Um, but you're also giving off the illusion of this character. Like Jeff Dunham, like, he uses the puppets. Like that's his kind of magician shtick. But if he didn't
Hmm.
commit to that bit, it would lose the illusion.
I'm trying to think, is there a puppet, the actual character, the puppet itself, which has been a comedian?
Um, um, Cry was it the puppet dog? Oh, was it Triumph? What do you think
Okay.
about that? Do you think about
I
he's like kind of a roast comic in some way?
I don't, I'm not up on the puppets, but I don't know that character. But you're saying
He's
that that character.
an older like roast comic character that people use. I can't remember which comic used him, but it was like pretty avid around like the 90s and 2000s.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to research that. That's right, because now we got this hybrid where the puppet, and puppeteer is the comic magician combo, which is really cool. All right.
Exactly.
All right, so punching up versus punching down. So where do comics versus comedians stand on this? So let me put it in some historical context.
Okay.
Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
I would say that the jester in itself was first. So because it was punching up. It was always getting people on the hype. Because I'm always a big advocate of laughter is the best medicine. The best thing is you can't OD and the refills are free. So when you're punching up, you're getting people hype. You're getting people to laugh even harder. You feeling like they're got like a higher emotion. If you
Mhm.
punch down and you get to a serious note, it has to be done pretty well. Like when people talk about like loss or some troubles within the family or troubles within the world, they kind of have to have it punched down to a point to where everybody is like, I can relate to that, you know?
So the prince killing the jester, is that even punching down?
I would say it's kind of I would say yeah, punching down, you know, because I don't think, but I think it's, but in a sense, I don't think it connects as much as like the jester getting everybody hyped for the
Yeah,
king, you know.
sure. I'm just trying to find, is there historical context for the first comedian? Is
Hmm.
there a moment when this happened where like
I
that's
don't,
when the comedian began?
I don't know. I feel like that is a hard question. I haven't really thought about that.
Yeah, well, hey, that's where put
Something to
in,
think
make
about.
a, it might be a good story to work out. Okay, so is the audience's agreement with a comedian a form of permission or alignment?
Here's the thing. I don't think comedians ever need permission to do what they need to do. I think it gives them validation so they can go even further along with it. Because if they have that sort of like standpoint of support behind them, then they're gonna really go for it. But if they don't feel like the audience is kind of vibing with them, I feel like they're gonna push off a little bit of what they wanted to do and just keep it at like very entry level.
Okay,
But
all
no matter
right.
what, comedians, you don't need permission from the audience. You kind of just do what you need to do and hopefully they back you up.
That's what
It's
I'm
very
saying.
much you're risking it for the biscuit.
Yes, exactly. That's the risk. So that's the permission. I mean, you're risking you're not going to ask for permission because you're just going to take the risk,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
All right. So cultural translation of comedy. So how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
It really all depends on where you're at. Like if you're performing somewhere that you never performed for, you better do your research
Mhm.
because then you can get some inside jokes and innuendos out there, some slang that they use so that you can connect more with the audience. But if someone is whole shtick is that they're from Louisiana and they have a show in Louisiana, they can connect more with them down there than if they say they go to France and they do, you know, they go do like a show in France and they don't know what, you know, the ins and outs of that community is.
Interesting. All right. So would you say that comics are more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
I would say comics start off getting all the information. They start off doing all the research so that way they can try to build themselves to be the comedian. Or the comic kind of finds themselves within that transformation in order to be the comedian. So that way they're like, I know this, I know that. I have this slang, I have this down. I'm from this place, so I got really good like, you know, like inside jokes. I got really good connections with this community, and that's kind of like the process of like finding out where you fit and what your audience is and how you connect with the audience.
I'll go with that. All right. All right. Now it's going to get a little harder. So,
Okay.
crowd work versus crafted work. So, if comics riff like influencers and
Mhm.
comedians perform like in reaction videos, where's the sweet spot?
I would definitely say crowd work is good if you can do it right.
Right.
People are like, "Where are you from?" Indiana. Oh, Indiana. Cool. Never been there. What's it like over there? Then it's dead. You lost the audience
Right.
at that point. But you know, like some influencers, yeah, they know how to do crowd work pretty well, but that's all they do. I don't think they've ever had anything to where like it's the written stuff. Now comedians, you know, sort of an idea like, you know, with like you know, Don Rickles is one of my favorite comedians.
Okay.
I really enjoy him, but he had good crowd work because he used to be a part of the, you know, the Dean Martin roast, the Frank Sinatra roast. He used to do all that kind of crowd work with a bunch of people. But it's all about like kind of finding like the balance between it because like you can do your characters, you can do the stuff that you writ like, you know, weeks and weeks of, and then if some things are not going very well, you can switch to character to crowd work in order to get the audience back in, and then you can go back to your written stuff, but it has to connect. It can't be just like a yada yada yada. What about you, good sir? Like, you know, it can't be like that. It has to connect in some way.
Sounds like a cruise ship experience, right? When you're referencing,
Exactly.
all right. All right. So, what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work or when a comedian gets heckled?
If that's your shtick, I
Right.
think it goes well for you, but I think the heckling You don't see it as much anymore. And even with the heckles, if you can play it along with it pretty good, it could even boost your set a little bit more. Because I've seen some really good heckles get some major comebacks, and they brought the audience like full frontal, like, oh, I'm ready to see what this guy has next. But if you don't know how to handle the heckle and it gets kind of like, I don't know, a little like, mean, not very like, friendly, I think that that then ruins it for a lot of people in the audience.
Where did you see this epic heckle?
Oh man, there's so many compilations of the epic heckles out there on YouTube that I watch them constantly. They're too good.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be. I mean, it's hard to find actually, it's a dime a dozen. So, I mean, it can be a dime a dozen, but to find the one that's really good, that you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
that's the gold right there.
I
All
think
right.
my favorite heckle was actually it was Rodney Dangerfield, and somebody was like, your sister, he's like there was like your sister or something, and then he came in, he's like,
Well, that's weird. I was with your mother last night. She didn't say nothing about that. Like,
Yeah.
it was too good.
Yeah, he had that in his back pocket. There's no other way to.
Oh yeah,
So,
Rodney
well, you
Dangerfield, he
never.
got no respect. No respect at all.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So, where's the puppet for that one? We got to put a Rod. Oh no, Rodney
Exactly.
Dangerfield.
He's in production right now.
All right. So, advertising and self promotion. So, who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Oh, it's got to be a tie between the magician and the comic. Because the magician, you got to sell your show. It's like no one's going to come to your show if they don't know what you're about. So you got to give them all the sparkle, the flair right in the beginning. When I see people on like social media and stuff like that, they put their funniest bits in when I know that's not their entire set.
Okay.
So they put their funniest bits in so that way they give off, this is what my show would be if you came. And with the magician, like I would say like, like Randy Felt is like another, like, he's another puppet, so you got the idea of like the puppet going on. You don't see the person behind the puppet, but you give off the magician the show of you're gonna go see an actual puppet give you, the talking to, because he does a lot of crowd work too. I don't know how he does it. How do you see with that?
What?
Yeah, it's wild. You got to see it. Randy Felt,
Okay.
fantastic.
All right.
Uh,
That's the reference.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
I would say that it's definitely a tie between the magician and the comic, because the comedian has settled itself so much into what they are and who they are that they don't need to as try as much, because when you develop yourself so much into a way where people are like, oh, that's that guy. He's all about this. He talks about this, they don't need to give you that idea of like, you need to promote yourself, because you're already being promoted as the comedian by doing what you're doing right now.
Hmm. So is self promotion seen as selling out, or is it necessary
No,
for survival?
absolutely not. It's so necessary right now, especially with the industry the way it is. I mean, it is, dog eat dog world. It is cutthroat out here. So you got to really put your stamp in somebody's face. You got to wave the flyer until they actually tell you to
What
leave
are
or
we
give you
waving and
an
stamping
order.
exactly? What is this instrument?
It is it is the promotionals on social media. Everyone is
Okay.
like promoting. Everyone is doing that. I see like billboards sometimes, and I'm like, I don't know who that is, but that's a big billboard. Like,
Really?
yeah.
So you've seen billboards for comics, comedians, or magicians?
Yes, I have actually. It was in like North Hollywood. I saw like a big one. I can't remember who it was, but they said they were like live at like the, a certain comedy club.
Like in North Hollywood?
Yeah, it was
Was it
interesting.
the Comedy
It
Chateau?
wasn't Chateau and it wasn't Ha Ha. I think it was oh,
Flappers?
Yeah, probably Flappers.
Okay, makes more sense.
That's in
Wow. Well,
Burbank
there you
actually,
go.
but yeah,
That is
it's
in
but
Burbank,
more or
but
less, yeah.
they're trying to take the North Hollywood crowd, and you get out of a comedy show in North Hollywood, and you're like, there, look at the billboard for.
Exactly. It
That's
was
our next
big
one.
too. I don't know if it's still there anymore because they couldn't afford a billboard for a week.
No,
Who
that's
can?
that's an epic cost. I mean, they're talking about a bringer show. I mean, you're putting some money up there.
That's like trying to put
All
yourself
right.
on the radio.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So censorship and offense. So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
I would say that it could be a part of people's, magician, or it could be a part of people's comic to be offensive. Like we had a lot of that in the early 2000s where people would just say offensive stuff to be offensive.
All right.
And people were like, "Oh yeah, that was funny. That was funny back then." Now I feel like in this day and age, it's very fine line because if you base your stuff off of being, well, I'm gonna say offensive stuff and this is exactly what I am. I'm giving you exactly what I am. So if you don't like it, you can leave, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So definitely offensive, has kind of moved on, right? So who survives better in a cancel culture environment?
I would say just being the authentic comedian. Like if you already established who you are, you establish what you're gonna be, selling to the audience, what you're gonna be performing, then they know exactly what they're getting themselves into. You're not gonna go to a show where they're gonna talk about political stuff if you're not political, you know. You're not gonna go to a show where they're gonna talk about, doing drugs and all this stuff back in the day, and you're set in like you're straight clean, like you're straight and narrow. You're gonna find your audience of who's gonna be okay with your content, and then they're gonna come see you.
Have you seen a puppet get canceled?
Jeff Dunham.
Was he? But it was him, but it wasn't the
It wasn't the
character,
puppet. I mean, technically, it was the puppet itself because they were trying to get Ahmed, the dead terrorist, out of
Oh,
the sets for a long
that's right.
time.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah,
That's right. They
the
did
only
try.
puppet to ever be canceled. I feel like
Yes.
because the Muppets never had to deal with that.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the one. Yes, that is the one. How about that? All right. So timing and delivery, is it a science or art? So do
Ooh.
comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
I would say, yeah, that I agree with that for sure. Comics, I feel like, with timing, it is a science, but then the punchlines and like the effect of the timing is an art. So you can bring it down to a science of like, okay, so this is how the timing goes with this kind of joke, but I need to hit this punchline right here. But that's an art because some people can really hit it on the perfect time, but they won't get the audience reaction as much as they want. So the art is finding out the je ne sais quoi to really hit that punchline to where people will be dying laughing and snorting all over the comedy room. Uh
So is
I
so is magic science or art?
I would say magicians are definitely art because it's very more creative. There is a little bit of science towards it, but I think they generalize pushing towards more art in timing because they're giving off this whole illusion of the
Mhm.
entire show, and that's art in itself. So if they're gonna tie their entire show with timing, it has to be an art as well, in my opinion.
I'm just trying to tie it in. I mean, I see the magician somewhere leaning towards something like hypnosis, and then the question
Yeah,
would be,
I would
right?
say that too. Yeah, I would say
So
that
so would
works.
hypnosis be art or science?
I would definitely say it's an art. You can, I mean, there's a science to it, but the way you can do it is an art. I think the baseline is science because apparently anybody can be hypnotized. That's what I've come to realize and understand that anybody can be hypnotized. You can have the little dangling thing left and right, and anyone can go, you're a dog now.
Right.
But the art of it, especially with like not just the hypnosis, like in general, like base science is like the hypnosis of like I believe that I'm talking to this person right now. Like I believe I'm talking to Larry the Cable Guy and not the actor who playing Larry the Cable Guy. I feel like I'm talking to the puppets and Jeff is just there,
Right.
talking to a buddy. So that I think that's an
So okay. Yeah, I mean, just trying to flesh that one out. So laughter versus applause. So are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
I would say it's based on what their material is going to be like because I think comics absolutely go for the laughs every time because if a laugh is kind of like that thing of like, okay, I can keep going. I still got them, you know? Then I'm gonna
Right.
keep going until the laughs kind of stop. Comedians, based on their material, like if they want to get, like I said, if they want to punch down and they want to get serious, they can do that and they can get applause instead of laughs, or they can do, laughs and then applause. But I feel like the one thing that I see a lot in like applauses is like, I just got divorced, and people are like, what? I'm like, and they're like, why are you clapping? You
Yeah.
know, it's like, I'm sad. And then
That's a hard one. They don't know what to do when people are just want to laugh. They want to have fun. So those things, that's what's
it's
going to
like
come
that
out a lot of
awkward
the time.
silence of like you don't know what they're gonna say, but then there's like the things to accomplish, like, I'm 30 years sober now, you know, I got my Hollywood Walk of Fame star, like everyone's gonna be like, what? They're gonna do that because they want to, like, say good job, we appreciate you for doing that,
Yeah.
you see the
All
hard
right.
work.
So comedy is commentary. When does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
Oh man, there's a fine line because I feel like a
Right.
lot of comics do that anyway without thinking about it. Especially based on the material. Like if they're a political based comedian, they're gonna sound like a little bit of preacher. They're gonna sound like they're gonna be giving that mantra out. Um, but some people like George Carlin, also uses that platform of like not preaching, but just like like 80s sitcoms. He's giving you life lessons at the very
Mhm.
end of every episode he does. You know, and I think
So, yeah.
that's more
No, I was
beneficial.
just, no, I was just going to say, is that good or does it dilute the humor?
I think it's good because I feel like it kind of connects to the humanity of the comedian because we know that comics have one of the most hardest jobs in the industry. I mean, every day you're going on stage and you're like you're taking the babies that you wrote so hard on, like months on end you wrote this set, and then if it flops, you got to throw that baby in the trash. You got to make sure that dumpster baby never sees the light of day, and you got to restart all over again. It's disheartening because like the most like funniest people normally are not as like warm hearted or like good, or like happy in those moments.
No. Oh, definitely
And
not. But why not just repeat the same error to prove that it was wrong, right? Are you going to throw it away if it doesn't work the first time?
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I feel like you could change it. You can fix it a little bit. But sometimes it's like if it doesn't work with the audience, you don't have to throw it away completely. Maybe you can just give the baby a little bit of plastic surgery and to fix a little bit of things here and there, and then here, brand new baby. You like this one?
Exactly. All right. So, comedy and vulnerability. I argue that comics hide behind their jokes and comedians expose themselves. If you agree, which one is braver?
I would say that comics do hide, but also it's not very good at hiding sometimes. Like they can hide their vulnerability towards the jokes, but some people can lean on. I'm bullshitting. Like like this is like something where they can tell you the most like vulnerable parts about them, but they're hiding behind the joke, and I do agree with that. Comedians are way more susceptible to being like, "Hey, this is what's going on right now. I don't need you to laugh. I'm just talking to y'all because I feel like I'm close enough with you guys to where I can just be my authentic self." And I think both of them are very brave, honestly, in many ways, because they're at least taking the risk as a comic to give off the idea of vulnerability, even hiding it between the jokes. And then once you feel more comfortable, you are the comedian where you can just speak your truth and you can be your authentic self in the long run.
Okay. So, last question about legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics Type 5 survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
In this short attention span of our generation, I would say that some people are going to remember bits and pieces of the Type 5 of the comic, but the person that goes on stage and makes memories, makes moments happen, and the people that like leave a mark on somebody's psyche, which is the comedian, will definitely, you survive the passage of time easy.
Would you say that actually it's not a generational thing, that perhaps we have all kind of lost our sense of, our attention span is shrunk? I remember having to remember phone numbers, and obviously when
Yeah.
cell phones came out, don't need to remember those anymore, right?
You don't have the Rolodex anymore?
Don't, yeah, exactly, right? So maybe we all just kind of compress down into the same one giant generation, no matter what the age is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we all kind of, yeah, just kind of in depth ourselves into this new era of like a short attention span. But, I feel like a lot of people have like kind of adapted to like finding a balance between the short and the long form because, at least we can like watch our 30-second, videos on Instagram, but we can also listen to like hour long, podcast, or we can watch, 3 hour long movies and
Right.
still be in depth and still get our attention. So I feel like it really depends on what we find is important in this day and age. If we're going to put our time towards it, we're going to pay more attention to it.
So I can imagine with the new VO3 being an 8-second clip. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's 8 seconds that it'll generate an audio video, and it's now taking over everything. As it lengthens, right? Because you're now looking for it. Is this AI or is it not? And right, and now that the consistency of the single shot grows from AI's perspective, we're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to pay more attention, right? Our attention span is going to be focused to see, is this real or is this not real?
Yeah, that's gonna be the age old question for a while, and is it AI or is it real?
Right.
And it's gonna be that battle of like, well, this may be like this is AI, but I want to make something better that looks way better than AI. And then we're gonna go to like, oh my God, AI is like, kind of outdated, but did you see this? Like this looks way like this looks amazing, and they used it all with practical effects. Like we're gonna go back to we're rewriting history again. I'm not gonna
Right.
lie, it's going back to the age of like, where new technology comes in and then we get too bored of it and then we go back to old technology. So I'm thinking we're going to see practical effects again. We're going to see, full on sound stages again soon. We're going to
Yeah.
bring back like 80s sitcom-esque type vibes, or like, we're bringing like old things back in a newer, prettier box because
Yeah.
we're always rewriting history at this point. But
That's I'm
hopefully we
looking
make it
forward to
prettier.
that. Well, no, for sure. Yeah. I mean, so but unless you want it to be a little bit ugly, perhaps,
It,
So
it gives a little character.
yeah. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for being my guest. Where can everybody find you online?
Oh, guys, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at my first name, last name, Jacob Vigil, VO. I do a lot of stuff for voiceover. I do a lot of content scripts and, just overall good stuff. Hope you guys come by and say hi.
Awesome. Did you say VO?
VO. Yeah. So like voiceover. V and then
Ah,
O.
voice VO. Okay. Maybe that's where they came out with the VEO3. Who knows? Well, everybody, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.